What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. We talked after game one, if you remember, about how that game was an awesome introduction for any casual fan who doesn't really know what the Pacers do. It was an opportunity for them to learn about Pacers basketball and what it looks like. And yet somehow last night put even that performance to shame. It was a complete two-way dominance in the first half that left absolutely no chance for recovery as the Pacers outscored the Cavs 80-39 in the first half, making it so that even though they got blown out in the second half, they still ended up winning by 20. They dominated literally every single facet of the game. I want to start with their defense. They completely flummoxed the Cavs offense with relentless ball pressure, picking up before any guard had a chance to get ahead of steam going up the court. They were running into a pacer that was flattening them out and getting rid of any of that pace that they were trying to bring into the front court. It was affecting everybody. Even Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland were struggling against the pressure. They were picking up after misses. They were picking up after makes. It completely shut down any of the transition opportunities that are such an important part of the Cavs offense. The Cavs logged just 2 transition points total in that first half during that run. And that again, you're just cutting off the most important part of that Cavs offense. Again, we talked about this before early in the season when we were discussing the 3 things that made the Cavs a different team than last year. If you guys remember, it was just the overall improvement of Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. Both of them are injured in this series. Darius Garland playing on a toe that's apparently splinted up so tight that it relieves pain, but that he can't actually bend the toe. And then Evan Mobley playing on a bad ankle. And so the 2 guys that are bringing the gigantic improvement year over year, both banged up. Secondly, the switching and forcing turnovers. And thirdly, the getting out in transition. And so essentially a little bit of talent influx with Garland and Mobley, and then they're turning teams over by switching and playing passing lanes, and they're playing a ton of transition basketball with a lot of pace, moving the ball around. And so Pacers don't turn the ball over. They're picking you up and preventing your transition pushes with ball pressure. And the 2 talent adds, so to speak, for the Cavs this year are not anywhere near 100% physically. And that has just completely flipped this dynamic to becoming a massive problem. Even Donovan Mitchell struggled, though. Donovan Mitchell has killed the Pacers in this series, and he was just 3 for 11 with 0 assists and 2 turnovers in that first half run for the Pacers. The Pacers dominated the glass. They out-rebounded the Cavs 22-15 in the first half. And then they just put on an offensive clinic. A 157 offensive rating in transition, a 136 offensive rating in the half court, which is astronomical. They generated 14 catch-and-shoot jump shots and made 10 of them. That's 2.14 points per shot. They hammered post mismatches right away to start the game. One of the first possessions, it's Aaron Nesmith is posting up Darius Garland, and they throw it to him. He draws a double team, swing, wide open 3. They're posting Siakam against Max Strus. They're posting Miles Turner against a bunch of the Cleveland guards, and Cleveland just didn't have the ability to prevent those mismatches from burning them. One of the things that Indiana does really well is they throw the skip pass. And when you throw the skip pass, that's what burns a typical post-front bracket coverage. So we talk about this coverage a lot with the Miami Heat because they front the post all the time. But when you try to front the post, there's a passing angle over the top. You try to close that window by having a guy come from the weak side and basically bracket on the other side of the post player. But that's what opens up the skip pass, and the Cavs are so paranoid about the skip pass that guy's staying home. And so there's just a huge passing window to float the ball over the top to these against these post fronts. And the Pacers just made really good post entry passes all night and just continually burned the Cavs every single time they switched ball screens. They lit up the zone. We talked after game 2 about how the Pacers kind of started to figure out the zone in the second half. Well, they did really well against it again tonight. They faced it 8 times in the first half and scored on 6 of those possessions. Every which way. They beat it by flashing middle, getting the ball to Siakam and shooters relocating off of it. They generated a wide open 3 for Andrew Nembhard that way. They beat it with the skip pass. TJ McConnell On the right wing, the low man on the left side was sunk all the way into the paint. Rifles will skip past to Thomas Bryant, who hits a mildly contested three out of the left corner. They beat it by screening the top man. Ball screen at the top, Obi Toppin rolls out of it, ball in the pocket, left-handed layup. Similar type of thing, Tyrese Haliburton with Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant rolls. When he rolls, the low man has to grab him. Tyrese swings the ball. It gets skipped all the way back to the corner because the guy who would be responsible for the corner is now guarding Thomas Bryant on the roll. Another wide open three on the weak side that goes in. They beat it with a flare screen, the three that Tyrese Haliburton hit. That was like 27, 28 feet off of the right wing. All that was is they flare screened the top man. Max Strus was the other top man, but he was sunk into the paint covering a flasher. Skip over the top, wide open three for Tyrese Haliburton. It goes in. The Pacers basically just ran their same man-to-man principles that they always run against the zone, and it worked extremely well as they basically just played the Cavs out of that zone. I look at the Indiana Pacers like a machine, and that machine was operating at peak efficiency on both ends of the floor last night, and it just chewed up and spit out the Cavs, and they had absolutely no chance. When the Pacers are playing like that, you just get to lose. And it's an interesting dynamic to keep in mind for the conference finals. There's just a higher level that they can get to on both ends of the floor this year as all of their players have made moderate improvements, even their star Tyrese Haliburton, just because he's healthier than he was in years past. So before we get to the Cavs, I just want to go into our next segment because I think this will be a good kind of format for us to touch base on the series, kind of zooming out, as well as what the Cavs are going through in terms of the slander that they're catching all over the NBA world today. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all four series, and we'll start with Pacers-Cavs, but I want to just talk with where I'm at with the series in terms of just what I expect moving forward, and then I want to talk about what we've learned about the teams involved. So Pacers-Cavs, where am I at this point? It's certainly not over. We know the Cavs can beat the Pacers at home. They basically did in Game 2. They just tricked it off. And we know that the Cavs can beat the Pacers in Indy. They just did it in Game 3. They blew them out. But they're just operating so far below their ceiling right now that I view it as pretty unlikely. They're completely shook by just the dynamic at play, and they're losing confidence in a lot of specific parts of their roster. Like Ty Jerome came in and immediately started turning the ball over again. As big of a drop-off from regular season performance to playoff performance in this series that I can remember from a player. Like, he was the best guard that I watched off the bench in the NBA this year. I actually thought he was better than Peyton Pritchard, and Peyton Pritchard was amazing in Madison Square Garden in Game 3 and has been a deeply useful player for the Celtics, and Ty Jerome has literally decomposed in this series. And it's absolutely wild. DeAndre Hunter came in and was missing jumpers so bad, wide left, that you could literally tell on the broadcast as the ball was coming out of his hands that it was going to be off to the left. Like, he was just completely out of sorts with his jump shot. Jared Allen was like brutally bad on defense in this game, like consistently out of position, just like misreading plays, like overplaying a random pressure of a high post catch from like Thomas Bryant that ends up giving up a layup, or jumping onto the wrong side of a screen with Dean Wade and giving up a driving lane, going to the opposite side of the screen. Like, he was bad in this game. Garland looks like a shell of himself. And then again, this was the first game where they held Donovan Mitchell in check. So like, even though I think we all know the Cavs can win this series, like, it's really simple. You go home and you beat the Pacers. Go and beat the Pacers at home. You're certainly capable of it. You go back to Indy and you beat them like you did in Game 3. And then you have Game 7 at home where anything can happen. I just don't think the Cavs are playing like the Cavs right now. If you really zoom out of this series, the only game where they really looked like the Cavs was Game 3. And in all three of the other games, even Game 2 when they won, it was like they were kind of hanging on for dear life for the most part and getting the shit kicked out of them in most of the moments of the series. And so I'm guessing the Pacers end up closing this out in 6. I bet they go up to Cleveland, drop Game 5, and then come home and blow out the Cavs to win in Game 6. But certainly the Cavs have a chance. But at this point, I would be surprised if the Pacers didn't win. Now, what have I learned? Honestly, this series hasn't gone that much differently than I expected. I picked the Cavs in 6. I specifically said to Carter in our series preview that I thought Indiana was a very similar team to Cleveland that would cause them lots of issues in the series, and I expected them to win multiple games. What has happened is the Pacers stole a game they should have lost. They were down 7 with 40 seconds left in game 2 and stole that game. And then the Cavs are also pretty substantially beat up by injuries. And so those two things have been enough to flip the outcome to where Indiana looks like the better team by a reasonable chunk, similar to what I expected from the Cavs before the series. That said, I want to be clear, even though that dynamic has flipped, I have also been super impressed by Indy. The way that their offense and their defense has had this level of success against a very good Cavs team has given me a lot more optimism that they absolutely can beat a Boston in the conference finals. They certainly could beat a New York. So I view the Pacers as a substantial finals threat now in a way that I didn't see them last year, because they're in just such a great offensive groove and they're so connected defensively right now. And so, yeah, the Pacers have shown themselves to be the better team at this point. There's just some context in terms of the Cavs operating well below their peak in terms of some injuries. But credit the Pacers. It's equal both ways. Like the Pacers have blown them out in 2 of these games. And if you really kind of zoom out, the Pacers have had a ton of success that has been related to just how great the Pacers are, that is separate from some of the issues that the Cavs are having with injuries and their flow and their confidence and that sort of stuff. So again, I just want to make sure that we give that credit to the Pacers as well, and that it's not just a Cavs thing. On the Cavs front, I see a lot of people burying them today. I've seen a lot of the 2015 Hawks references getting thrown around. And here's all I'll say about that. I was a basketball fan during that age. I remember watching the 2015 Hawks. The 2015 Hawks were a mediocre basketball team that just beat up on the Eastern Conference. This Cavs team showed an obvious upside and had an obvious talent level that they had in terms of the level Darius Garland was playing at before he got hurt, the level Donovan Mitchell was playing at all season, the level Evan Mobley was playing at all season, Jared Allen kind of encroaching on that top 7, top 6 centers in the NBA, the level of play they were getting from Ty Jerome off the bench, the elite catch and shoot play down the roster. This is a more talented, more dynamic team by a substantial margin than the 2015 Hawks. They run into a very hot, very good Indiana Pacers team. And they're way below their peak efficiency because Darius Garland is the guy that drives their offense. I talked about this all year. I like Donovan Mitchell. I really do. I think he's a great player. But I've talked about it throughout the year that I view Darius Garland as their most important offensive player, because he's the guy that the dynamic I kept talking about all season was just his ability to get dribble penetration. He gets dribble penetration on everyone, and that just instantly compromises your defense from the start of the shot clock. And you're just chasing your tail the rest of the possession because Darius Garland is so damn fast that he can get to wherever he wants to on the floor. Darius Garland with a bad toe, it can't, there was a possession against TJ McConnell in the first half where he's just trying to dribble around him on the left wing, and TJ looks faster than him. And TJ is a very good athlete. TJ is one of the most underrated dribble penetration guys in the league, but Darius is faster than him. And Darius looked slower than him in that matchup on the left wing. And so Darius Garland is quote unquote the head of the snake for their offense in terms of their ability to get the defense in rotation. Donovan Mitchell is a capable passer who's grown as a passer over the course of his career, but he is a scorer. That is what he does. And he has tried to solve problems in this series by scoring the basketball. Darius Garland is the guy who greases the wheels of their offense and gets the ball moving from side to side, gets the defense into rotation. And so having him be operating that far below his capability has substantially changed the way the Cavs play offense from the regular season. Even if you watch that first half, just the level of involvement from Darius Garland compared to what it would look like when you'd watch the Cavs back in January, December, February, it's just so different, missing that bit of explosion from Darius Garland. So here's the thing. Were the Cavs as good as the Thunder? No. Were the Cavs as good as the Celtics? No. Coming into the playoffs, I ranked them as the 4th most likely team to win the championship. So I wasn't quite as high on the Cavs as everyone else was. That said, after that Heat series, their offense was clicking at such a level that I did view them as a legitimate threat, a puncher's chance threat to beat the Boston Celtics. So much so that I was at least considering the idea that I would potentially pick them in a Celtics series. But then Darius Garland gets hurt. They're never able to recapture that offensive verve that they had before the Darius Garland injury, and now it just looks like they're dead in the water. And so, again, I think it's a little bit of both. Are they a little bit overrated from what they looked like as a 64-win regular season team? Yes. Are they the 2015 Hawks? No. They're certainly better than that. That's kind of how I felt about the Cavs after tonight or last night. And honestly, like as far as the future holds for the Cavs, like Darius Garland has had perpetual injury issues throughout his career. And it's just something to keep in mind that he finally has this super healthy season where he looks like an all NBA caliber guard, and then he just breaks down at the tail end of the season. It's just super unfortunate.